Welcome to this Beth Parkey Makes kit. Included everything you need to make a mermaid's tail keyring. You'll find attached a lobster keyring with a 30mm split ring, a couple of pins to hold it in place. You'll have 5 lengths of 1.5-meter strings, and you'll also have a 1.5-meter gold embroidery thread string and a 0.5 gold embroidery thread string. You can see that those ones are off to one side, and I'm beginning by attaching each of my long strings by using a lark's head knot. You do this by folding your string in half, folding the loop from front to back through your keyring, and then threading the 2 tail ends through the loop. As you can see, I'm repeating that process all the way through until I have all 5 strings attached. Once they're all attached, tighten each knot up in turn and make sure that you bring all of them in together. Now for your gold accessory, you're going to do the same thing, a lark's head knot, but you're going to do a reverse lark's head knot. So this time you are going to fold it in half and then bring the loop from the back through to the front. Because this is a bit of a special one, you're actually going to bring this knot across multiple strings. So here I've got it going over my 3rd string all the way over to my 7th string. I'm then going to tighten this in place, and by doing it the other way around, it's going to create an interesting effect. You can see there I'm just pointing at where it appears within the pattern, so that I'm just going to have this gold fleck appear through my stitches, my knots, as I progress through. Fastening it back in place, making sure you have a firm hold on your project before we get started. Are you ready to go? Here we go. Smoothing out your threads, making sure that you can count them. You count from left to right during this project, from number 1 on the furthest left to number 10 on the furthest right, and your gold strings will pair up with the string that they are closest to you as you follow the pattern. You're now going to start by using the 5th string to create a double half hitch knot. As you can see, I'm using my 6th string combined with the gold string to make my first knot. I do that by taking my traveling string number 5, bringing string 6 up under, and then back through the loop, pulling the knot all the way up to the top and tightening. Once I've done that with one string, I'm then going to go to my next string, which is string 8. Traveling from right to left this time, bringing string 7 around string 8, doing 1 double half hitch knot there, and then using string 6 to do the 2nd half hitch knot, bringing the thread up, over, and then back through the loop you've created to do those double half hitch knots there. You're going to continue working side to side, this time from left towards right, using string 3 to do 3 double half hitches headed towards the center. Making sure to tighten the knots each time, and you can alternate and vary where the gold string attaches. That's 3 double half hitches all the way to the center. We're creating that central bit for the mermaid's tail to work around. And now going across from right to left, we're going to take string 10 and do 4 double half hitches. Again, going all the way across to the center. It's important that especially these first rows of knots are nice and tight, as this is going to set the width of your design. Tightening them up as you go, making sure they're lying flat next to each other, no overlapping knots. Next up, it is of course going to go from the left to the right, all the way into center, bringing string 1 all the way across, doing 5 double half hitches and incorporating your gold threads where you like to. You can see that I almost twist the gold embroidery thread around the string so that I get that glint of gold shining through as I do my knots. The double half hitch knot is a beautifully simple knot, and you can do so many different stitches and designs with it. This whole design being made up, the body of the design being made up by the double half hitches. Next up, we're going to speed things up because you're now going to repeat the design. You are going to come across using string 10 and go for 4 knots. 4 double half hitches. When you're ready, coming across from string 1 again, and the pattern is going to repeat, bringing it into the center each time, incorporating the gold string and wrapping it around your traveling string. As you keep working towards the center, you're going to create almost a fishtail braid effect, which suits the name quite well, don't you think? The mermaid's tail design, creating that fishtail kind of braid look. Now, if you create a little bit of extra texture at the sides, or you take the knot slightly looser, you're going to create a slightly fishtailing feel to this design. But what I've enjoyed with doing this is keeping those lines down the sides straight by keeping the repeats the same. So I'm doing 4 across from one side and 5 across from the other. Have a play around. If you want to make it a little bit bulkier, you can add in some extra double half hitches. But this at the moment is one of the simplest, the most straightforward designs, made more elegant by the addition of the gold. You can see that actually once you're in the swing of it, the design builds up really nicely. That central line appearing as the stitches join. Alternating sides, this going from right across to left, bringing it across to the middle, and then going from the other side. I repeated these knots about 10 times, repeating those last 2 lines plenty of times to create a knotted section for about 10 centimeters long. You can make this shorter or longer according to your preference of how long you would like to make it. One thing to bear in mind is that you will need to leave enough string for a tail portion. If you do take it to about 10 centimeters long of this knotted section here, with the almost like those scales working in towards each other from right to left, and then now from left to right again in just that a moment there, from left to right again, then you can see that you create that lovely effect going down the sides. But you'll need to add that braided you'll need to add that tassel section at the bottom. Keep going until you have created as much length as you want. If your top bit is 10 centimeters and then your tassel tail is approximately 5 centimeters, is a very pleasing proportion to the eye. You can see there, just counting through, checking that I've got even numbers both sides, and finishing it where I feel is the right kind of level. Now, to take the gold thread, I'm going to gather all of my tail, as it were, together. You can see me twisting it and twisting the 2 sides in on themselves to bring the outer threads to the inside. That is to really secure this knot in place. Now, I've got the end of my gold string, end of my thumb, created a loop at the top, folded it back down and trapped that bit, and now I am bringing the long end of my gold string around and around and around, trapping all of those tail ends and that looped section of gold that I created. At this point, it's quite tricky to keep it actually attached to the table. So you can see that I lost my pins and I'm just wrapping around. Because this gold embroidery thread is so fine, it's actually possible to get quite a few strings going round. And what I'm doing here is I'm working down and then back up. I want to finish with my end as close to that loop as possible, passing it through the loop and then using the tail end to pull the knot tight and to pull the loop behind those wrap knots that I have created. Once I've pulled it in the back, I can trim off the top edge as close as I can to those wrapped knots. And at this point, I can choose to leave the gold string in amongst the tail or to trim it off. And this is where you get to choose the length of your design. Here, I've trimmed off a rough amount to mean that I can work with my excess. You can see there I've just trimmed off quite a bit from the bottom, so I could have made this design longer if I wanted to, and now is a choice where I get to choose how long I want it. It's important to measure the top and the bottom part together to see what your proportions are going to be. Brush it out, and you can use a pet brush, a clean pet brush. You could use a fine tooth comb, you could use anything you want. But once you're happy with that, you can see that now I'm using my excess, tying it all together in a bundle, then creating a little loop section through with my excess string. And I'm actually going to make a bonus little tassel. Yes, I am. Tying it up nicely there. Once that is tied and neat, I can then brush out the lengths, use my excess string to create that wrap knot again. I've got gold, so I'm going to just use that extra little bit just to tie around, create that wrap knot, bringing the loose ends behind the wrapped section to hold them tight, and then trimming them as needed. It's a little bit fiddly if the strings are shorter. Pulling it nice and tight, trimming off the excess, brushing it, and then trimming my ends. At this point, I've trimmed them down to the shortest string that I had. That's a good way of doing it. It means you get a nice kind of blocky bottom to your tassel. So just trimming. Remember, you can't add extra, so trimming several stages is the wisest way to go. And there you go, a cute little tassel to go alongside your mermaid's tail keyring. Now, if you want to know anything more about this kit or either of my other two, then you can head on over to my Instagram at BethParkyMakes and get in touch. Happy crafting!